Okay, good morning, everyone. It's 9:30 on Wednesday, July the 3rd. And oh, Michael is coming. Oh, that's right. Let's see. Okay, great. Hi, Michael. Wasn't expecting you. Okay, so welcome to everyone. Let's see. I want to just say that for folks that are online, I see a few names that need to be adjusted. We need to be able to see your first and last name on the screen for in order to do proper open meeting law records. And if we don't see your first and last name,
that's probably Jethro.
We probably know who Jethro is, but let's not spend time guessing because they can adjust it. Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Great. We can move forward. All right, we'll start this meeting with the rules of procedure.
Okay.
Chip.
The Select Board, as required by law, conducts meetings in accordance with Vermont Open Meeting Law 1 V.S.A. 310 to 314, except as provided in Section 313 of that title. At these meetings, the public must be afforded reasonable opportunity to give its opinion on matters considered by the Select Board so long as order is maintained. Such public comment is subject to the reasonable rules established by the chair of the Select Board 1 V.S.A. 312H. While the law clearly establishes the right of public participation, that right is not without its limits. The statute reads, at an open meeting, the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to express its opinions on matters considered by the public body during the meeting, as long as order is maintained. Public comment shall be subject to reasonable rules established by the chairperson.
Thank you, Chip. I just noticing here that MV, if you could please adjust your name so we can see your first and last name on the screen. That's required by open meeting law. Let's see. So there will be no changes to the agenda. We have one item on the agenda this morning, but we'll start first with community comments.
And Connie had one. Yeah. Oh, well, Connie had. Go ahead, Connie. Connie, do you want to come closer?
Yeah. Do I have to?
No.
I mean, it might be for the mic.
It might be good for the
I would
microphone.
say yes.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, for the recording,
Yes.
I think.
Okay.
You can bring your chair if you want to.
I won't forget that one.
Okay.
Well, but maybe I'm too tall. I'm not too tall. Nobody can see over my
Just
head.
make yourself comfortable.
Okay. I asked to be on the agenda today
Mhm.
because I had sent an email after the last board meeting on the 24th of June, I believe, and I hadn't received any response to it. So I just want to simply read my email and then add a few other comments to it. So my email, which was written on the evening of June 24th, after the last meeting, at the Select Board meeting this evening, it was voted that the reserve fund be used to pay for the refurbishment of the library sign. In the reserve fund policy is the following: reserve fund expenditures. Any expenditure of the reserve fund by the Select Board for such purposes shall require approval of a majority of the Select Board members after due notice and a public hearing. Unquote. There was no due notice that I'm aware of. It wasn't even in the agenda. It only came up in the town administrator's report. Further, there was no public hearing. There was only approval of a majority of the Select Board members. To me, that makes the vote null and void. Vote taken to cover the cost of the sign repair needed by the highway department also should have been given due notice and a public hearing, as well as approval by a majority of the Select Board members. That vote too, in my view, should be rendered null and void. I would appreciate a response. Thank you, Connie Burton. That's the end of my email. And then I also wanted to say that in looking over the review fund balance policy, it seems to me that that reserve fund was set up with a lot of deep thought, and it was not to be meant to be dipped into on a whim. It was set up as a safeguard to assist in meeting true emergency needs of our town. And in the policy, those are my comments. In the policy, it says if revenue shortfalls during the course of a fiscal year as may be caused by economic downturns, and this wasn't because of that, natural disasters, this wasn't because of that, or any other unforeseen circumstances, I think that's questionable. It's pretty obvious that the library sign had been in that condition for a while, and it just was decided to do that, I think, because of the party that was happening, and it was a lovely party for Kathy Wilkin. I also learned yesterday, fairly late in the day, that there had been an offer by somebody in the town to refurbish the sign at no cost to the town. But that must have been turned down because that wasn't what was used. But those are my comments.
Thank you, Connie. You will hear from us.
Great,
Okay.
Can I
thank
do
you.
this morning real quick, just to clear that up?
Yeah,
Yeah, you were on the agenda for next week, and first I wanted to thank you for your email, and we'll get into it deeper next week. But in your email to me and to the board, you emphasized the word public hearing, which caught my attention. So I've covered a gazillion of these things, and the wording just didn't seem right to me. So I reached out to the VLCT, and the wording should actually be public meeting. So the reserve policy, while correct in your interpretation, is actually written wrong. And so the VLCT, I'm not going to go into it, but the VLCT sent me the correct paragraph. We changed it in the reserve fund. We'll address it next week. But essentially, whoever wrote the reserve fund inadvertently, mistakenly put the phrase public hearing. Should have been public meeting, which would allow the select board to use the reserve fund in accordance to the matter of the law. So while you're right, the way the reserve fund is now written should have probably been pushed to another week. But on the other hand, the reserve fund policy itself is wrong. It'll be corrected. We'll be able to handle things like the sign and Dan's $3,200 going forward. But we'll get into it more next week. I just wanted to address that quickly.
Okay, and I'm glad you did because I won't be able to be at the meeting next week.
I'll send you an email.
Okay.
good.
I'll send you this as well, since you're in the meeting. But I've got the VLCT in paper right in front of me, so we're good to go. Okay, thanks.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
That, if I can just comment that doesn't change the purpose of the reserve fund, so, which is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Which
get
is
into it
just
next
as
week.
much
We'll talk about
We'll talk
that.
next week. We can't
Yes,
really
it is.
talk that much about it. It's a violation of open meeting law to even pursue it to this degree because it hasn't been warned or anything, but we'll get into it next week. But believe me, we are in accordance with everything that's been required.
Is it
That's all
possible,
we can do. I'm sorry, Connie.
but is it possible to move that to the next meeting when I can be here? I really-
Well, it'll be a public meeting and
It's a
it'll be
public meeting.
recorded and everything. I mean,
We have to get it corrected. We just can't have it sitting out there incorrect.
It's possible. We'll consider it.
Okay,
Yeah,
I appreciate
don't know
that.
that. Yeah, don't know that we'll be able to. Okay, I see Tammy's hand as well.
Yeah, I would actually like to start out by following up on what Connie was just saying.
Here,
And-
here's my chair.
And thank you. Chip just mentioned, and I know Zon has mentioned this before, that you can't even discuss a topic if it's not on the agenda. So again, going back to accessing the reserve fund, that was not on the agenda. So I'm not sure why that was okay to address it and vote on it and make a decision, because that wasn't on the agenda. But now you're saying Connie's topic, we can't discuss.
The public comments, I'm trying to work with you here. I'm like
No,
an
I
advocate.
understand,
gotta
but-
solicit. Just the public comments that come in the first 10 minutes, they are wide open and anybody can talk about anything. That's the way the public comment is supposed to work. But if what they're talking about, like, let's say, for example, let's say the reserve fund was on the agenda. Well, in the first 10 minutes of public comment, you can talk about that. If the reserve fund is not, or anything, the sand gravel pit, whatever it is, if it's on the agenda, you can talk about it. If you're bringing it to the select board as a new comment, we can't really comment on it because it violates open meeting law.
My
Which
question
is
is,
fine, it got it.
yeah, my question is, but you
I
guys
think
were
we'll
able
address all
to
that next-
discuss and make a motion and vote
I
on
think
something that
we'll-
wasn't on the
It's a little,
agenda.
it's
So
a,
I guess I'm
it's a,
questioning.
I think I think he's right. We'll talk about it the next
Okay.
meeting. 'Cause we'll get
Yeah,
So
yes.
what I actually wanted to talk about
Yeah.
this time, what I was coming to you guys with, is the new policy with our participation as far as public. I've made it quite clear numerous times, the new policy is not a good policy. And I just wanted to read from this is the the guide to open meeting law that the Vermont Secretary of State put out.
Mhm.
And I'm just gonna read a couple of sentences that I think is the point I'm trying to make. We should all be allowed to participate and have conversation on the agenda items. Instead of before, I don't even know what today's meeting is, this special meeting about a vault. That means nothing to me. So obviously I can't talk about that now. I'll wait and see what's going on. And by the time I do get to talk about it, you've probably already made a decision as a board. And that is not allowing us an opportunity.
Is that what that says there?
So
Would you
what
like to
this
read to
says,
us?
let me read what this
Mhm.
says. Some boards allow public comment whenever anyone present has something to add to the discussion. We believe, again, this is from the Vermont Secretary of State, we believe it is a best practice to allow the public to comment on each item as the board proceeds through the agenda. And that's what I think we should be doing. I think we need to redo that policy that you guys just gave your stamp of approval to. Because when you voted it in saying, yes, this is gonna be our new policy, I said at the time, that doesn't give us a chance to talk about the agenda items. We don't get to talk until after you've made a decision. You pointed out to me that no, we're going to extend things. We're gonna talk about things and we won't vote on it until further down the line. Well, 3 times at the last meeting you did it, and now today it looks like that's going to happen again. You guys are gonna discuss something, no input from the public, and you're gonna make a decision.
Mhm.
And this policy is not transparent and it's not trying to encourage participation from the community.
Except we're getting it quite nicely here. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
yes
very
and
much.
no, we can't chime in on what you guys are about to vote on until after you've already voted on it. So it's not a good policy and I would hope that you guys will redo it.
Thanks, Tammy. Is there any other comment? Yeah, Dolores.
I just want to second
identify-
what Tammy said so eloquently, and I could not say it
Yes.
so nicely.
Good.
Same, same.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there somebody,
There's a phone.
Okay, I see, and Emma, I see Emily and a telephone. We need to see your first and last names, please. Not, or the person on the phone, if you want to unmute yourself and tell us who you are. Maybe trickier than.
Richard Rosansky and Todd Mandel.
Thank you, Richard. All right. Emily, if you could indicate your last name, that would be great. Again.
Hi, it's Emily Houghton.
Okay, thank you, Emily. All right, then we'll move on to the next business, the new business, the topic for today. I want to start by just laying out why we're here today, and then a couple of just some basic information, and then we'll have a discussion, I hope, here at a good discussion here at the board. We're here because I received an email from the Secretary of, an attorney at the Secretary of State. And that email indicated that our town clerk did not have a combination to one of the vaults. You all know that the town has 2 vaults here. We have a vault that we colloquially here in the office, it's called the clerk's vault, and then there's the treasurer's vault. The clerk's vault holds the public documents that many of us have come to know and deal with, and they're available to the public for various reasons. The treasurer's vault, on the other hand, is not open to the public, mainly because it has money in it, and so it's not available to the public. So that was the extent of the email from the lawyer. Asked or just stated the fact and asked if the select board had a resolution. So that began me doing a lot of questioning and looking around at statute and so forth like that. So I'd like to lay out my thoughts here first, to just kind of and then we'll have a discussion, then we'll see where we can go from there. But I think there are a few outcomes here. What I would say that this act of having the chair of the select board receive an email from an attorney at the Secretary of State's office indicates to me and that there are communication issues at our staff, among our staff members. Our staff members are having some difficulty communicating because, as I understand it, and as I think the select board has said over and over, and we wish that there would be just an easy, comfortable way of us all working together and making things work the best we can. So I think that it's important for us to try to move forward with that. Also, in looking at all of this for today, we've discovered, it's always a discovery process here. So I'd like to just highlight some of the things that I have understood, and this is not accusatory in any way. These are just some of the issues that I see at play here in the office. And I just want to state them out for the record, that there are 2 vaults in the town. They are traditionally used by the clerk and the treasurer. When Penny was here, she used both of them and had access to all the combinations and everything. Now that Penny's no longer here, there was a decision to get new combinations for each of the vaults. The combinations were changed at some point. I don't actually know exactly when. Part of this is I really don't feel like the select board needs to get down in the weeds and understand every single detail of what's going on. There's a communication problem in our staff, and that's what we need. That's what I think we need to address. When the combination was changed, it became clear that the town clerk and the assistant clerk would hold the combination to one of the vaults and not share it with the other members of the staff. And so consequently, then the treasurer's vault was also not shared with other members. So we have what's going on is we have some people have access to some of the vaults, but not everybody has access in order to do their jobs. There are some people in each that we're finding now, the select board's learning that there are staff members who don't have access to the vaults because they don't have the combinations. Because the combinations are controlled by individual staff members. At some point, there was a request to enter the treasurer's vault to place ballots in there. So it's a part of the election process. So I don't know exactly why. I could understand, but I don't know that that's important. I don't understand why the ballots need to be put into the treasurer's vault. And there's lots, I've read a lot about how towns do it, and there are lots of ways to do it. There's nothing that says those ballots have to be held in the treasurer's vault, in other words. So there was a request to enter that vault with the election ballots at non-regular hours. So then there came a request that the treasurer's vault be left open, so that there could be access to the treasurer's vault when no staff member was here. That seems to me irregular. The clerk's vault was then left open, unattended, in the last couple of days, with an instruction for another staff member to move some things inside the vault, and that person said, no, I'm just not going to do that. So we have vaults there are requests to leave vaults open, and there are vaults being left open here in the office. So that's about as much as I want to say. That to me signals a number of problems inside the way that our staff is working to sort this out. I do understand also that our staff members have talked to one another, either via email, as is the request of one staff person, or in person to try to sort this out. And the result was I received an email that said that one of our staff members does not have access or does not have a combination to a vault and is requesting information about that. So that's why we're here this morning, is to begin to understand this. So I don't think it's important for us. I've already tried in some ways to understand what's going on. I don't think we need to sit and sift through all the details of everything. I think what we can see is there's a communication problem here, and we need to find a better solution. It turns out that by statute, we won't be calling on the community at this point. We'll be doing that. There's another moment in the meeting when we'll be taking public comment. Thank you. I do want to say that turns out there's statute 24 V.S.A. section 872 that articulates that it's the select board that has control over the physical aspects of all of the buildings. So for instance, the painting of the building, or say, for instance, the repair of a door or something like that. All of that is under the purview and under the oversight of the select board. So it has become clear to me that in fact, the body that should have those combinations is the select board. The select board should have those combinations. Yeah, because that's what statute requires. And then we would work with staff through our town administrator to make sure that everyone had appropriate access to the. We're not here to deny access to anyone. I think the issue is there are two questions. Do some people need the combination and some other people do not need combinations and I don't know if staff should be deciding that. That's one issue, the combinations. Another issue is access. Do you have access to the vaults to use them as you need? Each person, and we're discovering, or at least I'm discovering, that all staff members don't have adequate access, workable access to the vaults that they need to do their jobs. So we need to find another solution. And I am looking at the notion of that the select board needs to, for instance, the select board, instead of the locks or the combination being handled by the staff, which seems perfectly reasonable, so long as everybody's talking and getting along. But when it's not reasonable, and if people aren't talking and getting along, it seems to me that we need a different solution. And a solution that is allowed by statute is that the select board would could change the combinations, and then through policy and through decision making, make determinations about who has access to which vault. I'm just laying out what all I've learned here, but I'd love to hear what other select board members have to say, or any questions people have. I'm not proposing that what I'm suggesting here is the way we need to go. It's a possibility for us.
I just want to say the only reason we're here is because we received a letter from the Secretary of State questioning or stating that someone was being denied access to the codes. So it's not, I mean, we don't want to be here. We shouldn't be in, this shouldn't be happening, honestly. And I think that if people can't communicate and people are not speaking and requesting that they only be spoken to via email, which is what I believe is happening, then it creates,
Even if they're one desk over.
it creates a big problem, and we don't have any other option other than requesting the codes and then delineating them. And by we won't all get the code. It'll be Erica, Ellie, and Danielle, and probably a select board member. But that's where we are right now because of the lack of communication from what we understand. And we would not get a letter from the Secretary of the State if there was not an issue going on.
Right.
And I wanted to add to what Tara said, which was that we probably could have tried to handle this in executive session. But I mean, transparency is a big word around here. And the way that I see this is that we have a problem that we wanted to deal with openly without blame, and including the public in our deliberations. It is our responsibility to deal with this, but we have no interest in or need for secrecy. You know, I had great hope when we had this fresh staff, freshly renovated town office, that we've learned, I feel personally, I've learned a lot in some humbling ways about the oversight and mistakes that the select board made in the past. And in looking at now, I feel as if we just need to be as clear as possible about our understanding of what's going on and just to try to find the simplest way to remedy the situation with compassion for everybody, because we don't know, we can't know what people's barriers are.
Yeah, I would agree on that. I think, and that when you look at the situation, I think, the word toxic atmosphere might be a little overblown, but it's, I think, close to reality. And the fact that we're sitting here is a strong indication of that, that the respective parties, couldn't work this out, on their own. But when you look at the Vermont statute, 24 V.S.A. 872 includes the supervision and management of town property such as a town hall or similar facility. So the VLCT staff attorney writes, the vault itself is town property. So our take is that the select board should retain access to that combination, and so should all other officers who need access to perform the duties of their office, which to me is the simple solution. We get the combination, we get the access, we do as Tara says, and it's Erica, it's disseminated to everybody who needs it for their work, their mode of work or line of work or whatever they're involved with, and the solution is fixed. And hopefully maybe that starts a process where, the ability to work along and get along continues, because it is, awkward and uncomfortable if some people are responding only to email, even if another individual is one desk over. It's just, that's untenable situation that cannot continue. So that's why we're here today. It's regrettable, it's unfortunate, but the solution is, you've outlined it, Tara backed it up. We all know the solution is simple: get the combination, do what the Vermont statute allows us to do, and move on.
Tara.
I also have some questions about like procedures and policies around the treasurer's vault. Like, should it only be open during working hours? And should there be more than 2 people in the building? Because having access to that on a weekend and not open hours just doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't seem like that should ever be an option.
I agree.
And we don't currently have a vault policy. So
No.
that's
Yeah,
right, Ellie, right?
I think that's what one of the things that this is revealing, and one of the things that we recognize by having Penny here for so many years is she just handled so many things for us, and there was no question, and so things were just taken care of. And now we see reason why there might need to be more care and more thoughtfulness in actually proposing policies around how the building is used with regard to the records that everyone needs to feel remarkably protective of.
Right.
And careful about. The idea that anybody would ask a staff member here to leave the vault open so they could come in at a later moment seems ridiculous in my view. It's just untenable. So I think we have to find a different solution.
I think that's a good idea, like Tara just said, and I think, we could rely on, we're not here every day. We rely on Erica and Hannah and Danielle and Ellie to create a policy that works. They know each other's hours. They know who's in the building when. But I clearly think that there needs to be, a mandate. Like, if there's money in the treasurer's vault, there should be 2 people that open and close it. It just, because the policy isn't just for who's here now, it's who's here in the future. Like, set the guidelines and follow them. And yeah, absolutely. Like, either vault, just because of the way ballots, et cetera, have been looked at and scrutinized and dissected, no vault should be open after working hours. If the building's open, the vaults are open. If the building's closed, the vaults are closed.
Yeah, I hear that. I think, I would recommend that we, not today, obviously, but we
No.
need to probably set up a task force that would do some policy development for us.
I'll
around
sit
this
down,
thing.
yeah, I would volunteer just to sit down with everybody in
All
this
right,
building.
well,
and
let's,
do that.
we'll do that at another meeting, but yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, there should be documents. If there's money in the treasurer's vault, I think like there should be a daily beginning of day and end of day count, just like any business.
Yeah.
And also, I have a question about the clerk's vault. So that holds all of our public records. Now, if the town clerk and assistant town clerk aren't here, the administrator and the treasurer may need access to that for any reason, right?
There are reasons for sure. Yeah.
And they don't have access
They
to
don't have
that.
access at this point.
Okay, well, that's like very clear. That's something that everybody needs to know. Like, that's what's going on. They don't have access to it.
Yeah, and I understand that even though there have been attempts at trying to converse about this and work things out, it goes nowhere.
Right.
So that's why the select board is here and needs to step in at this point. And it's gotten to that point. So, Michael, did you have anything that you're thinking about?
I'll just reiterate some of the other comments and reinforce them. I think we should change the codes and disseminate as needed and develop a vault policy.
Yeah, okay. That's great. All right. Is there anything else anybody would like to say here at the table? All right, I will make a motion, and in making a motion, I totally understand that we are not providing the community an opportunity to speak to us about this. The community can speak to us about this at any point afterward. And you have watched the select board change its very motions and policies in the past. The actions we're taking right now are based on the best information we have. And so that's our job. And so we're going to do our job here and hope that if you have other thoughts, you'll let us know those. We appreciate that and want to know that. And that can then become part of a further conversation. So I will make a motion that the select board per 24 V.S.A. section 872, as described in that portion of statute, that the select board take control of the combinations insofar as getting the combinations.
No, you get, it says public comments. We need to make comments about this.
Yeah, no, you will be able to make comments about this soon. Thank
After
you.
you made a motion,
Yes.
it's already been declared that you do this.
No,
And
that's
you
it.
decide something without letting us speak.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So I will make a motion that we, as I said, that per V.S.A. 24 V.S.A. 872, that the select board would be the body that would take control of the combinations. And then we would hand them to our town administrator and then disseminate them to the appropriate people as they need them, so that no one is denied access. Yeah.
Could I interrupt for a
No,
moment?
I'm sorry, thank you. We're in the middle of a
town
meeting.
Clerk's office can't chime in on the comment section?
That we're not to the comment section yet. You
No,
will be
no,
able
let
to in
us
just a
make
moment.
comments.
Oh, so you're making a motion prior
Yes,
to
Yeah.
hearing what the
As
town
per
clerk's
policy.
office-
yes,
So-
per the select board policy. Yes, thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah. Is there
You're good. Yes.
is there a second to this?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, let me look at the end. But I'd like to make a motion to allow public comment now.
At this point, all right?
Me too. I'll
All
second
right,
that.
all right. So let's vote on that. And we'll hold, I'm willing to hold mine a moment. All right, let's vote on that. Is there any discussion about that? All those in favor of allowing for public conversation now?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right. There are
So
people in the
shall
room.
we recognize Danielle?
Not first. We'll start with Lynn King.
So a couple of things. As a lifelong resident, I want to just share that I feel bad as someone who's sitting in and in part of this discussion here today and seeing such discomfort in what people might have to say, one. Two, you mentioned when Penny was here, and Penny always did a great job. Penny was clerk and treasurer, as it was mentioned, she had 30 hours as a clerk, 10 hours as treasurer. And yes, of course, she did have all those combinations. Now, things are changed. We have a 30-hour clerk. I also believe that discussion shows she should have 40 hours as the other people. We have Ellie who has 40 hours, town administrator has 40, plus they have access to 20 extra hours. So for a clerk to have 30, that needs to be thought about, right?
Yes.
And the one thing I want you all to think about, and this comes from, I have years of banking, the vault is an actual part of a building, but the content is what you need to think about. Who, I'm not sure, who is fully in charge of the content of both vaults? The treasurers, it sounds like there's a little bit of everything in there, and then the basic vault with town records. So select board may overrule and override if they have access to the combination, but then who becomes responsible solely, or is everyone going to be responsible for the content? So I think content really needs to be thought about before you make any final decision.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I can give you some history, a lot of it. My first question is, state statute was, and I presume it still is, that any meeting, even an emergency meeting, be posted, physically posted in 3 places in town 24 hours before the meeting. Did that take place?
Yes.
On what?
What?
On how?
The bridge, the Guilford Center, the Guilford Country Store, and the office.
Okay, I stand corrected. Okay. Regarding everybody having access to the vaults, years ago, and somebody, a staff member or somebody had access to the vaults and was coming in here nighttime, weekend, when nobody was here, they got caught. I'm not gonna tell you how they got caught, it might happen again. Nobody knew what they were doing, nobody ever admitted to it, and that's why the combinations were changed. I had the combination to the town clerk's vault for years. I never had an inclination or a need to get in there. Why does the select board need a combination to the town clerk's vault? She has records in there that are valuable, and if they could be destroyed in a heartbeat by someone just being careless.
Yeah.
If you find it absolutely necessary for half of the people in town to have a combination to that vault, I would suggest you have a video sign-in sheet and a video in the vault, see what goes on.
Okay, good.
My feeling is the select board does not need that combination.
Though you had it for years.
I had it for years,
As a select board member.
by accident. I didn't ask for it, I just got it by accident because I had trouble with the combination, and Penny asked me to see if I could work it, and yeah, and I never had no use for it.
I don't want the combination.
I don't think this, I don't think we intend for us to carry the conversation.
And we won't get it.
I would have it, and I would only open the vault if staff needed it here, and definitely no public when the town clerk wasn't here.
You might need a combination to both vaults.
Yes.
I'll go there. But as far as the select board in general, there's too many people that have.
No, not everybody.
I think this is what we will
If
deal
you
with.
had a town clerk that was here for 40 hours, it would be open and you
Yes,
wouldn't need to have the combination.
In addition to
You
that,
don't
there's
need
the
for you
vote.
to have it. If you have a town clerk that's here operating the vote.
There was a vote taking a town meeting to cut the town clerk's office to 30 hours.
Whoever
Yeah.
did that.
The town did that.
The
The
town,
select
the
board did
voters,
not do
the
No.
that.
select board did not do
Steve
that.
Lemke did that.
The voters
So
did
you need
that.
to put it back.
All right,
Wow.
so in that case, I say we keep it exactly as it is.
You're fired.
If I'm a
Davies.
judge.
Yeah, first I'd like to recognize the board for opening it up before the vote. It was something that was asked for, and I think that the people ought to recognize that you wrote policy by vote, by statute, so correctly. Went about it correctly. But my statement is that, I mean, things are in vaults because they're valuable and they shouldn't have access to anybody, anytime, anywhere. That's why they're in vaults. They're on the bookshelves. If, someone can break into the building and steal it, and we're not out of luck. So my first thought is, very limited access to the code. Access to the vault can come via the person who has the code.
Right.
But all of this and all of the things that were stated over here are really part of the policy that you need to do.
Right.
And if I'm understanding the motion that we're discussing, that's not part of that vote.
Correct.
And that the board has indicated that they will work to develop a policy where all of these other issues, including mine, will come into play. Who exactly has the code? Who has access via the code or via the person who has access?
And then the procedures around getting into.
The procedures, the policies around getting into it. And given the history, as stated, that people have broken in and have the statement that people want access to the vault when they're the only one in the room, whether they're a board member, any of the elected or appointed staff, frankly, concerned me. I mean, a business would never, maybe the CEO can walk in and, but that would be it. So I fully support getting tighter controls around the vaults.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go to Jethro Eaton. Jethro?
Yeah, I too, I appreciate the select board coming and bringing this to the community's attention. And I agree with that, having a policy makes sense. And I think having more eyes and more ways of us participating as a community and being aware of what's going on, especially when there's issues happening in employees not getting along. So I think this move to create a policy and keep an open conversation, I feel like having the select board involved makes a lot of sense. So I really appreciate you guys bringing this to our attention.
Thank you, Jethro.
Thanks,
Tammy?
Again, I would like to thank you guys for voting to allow us to speak. So I'm kind of questioning if there are two vaults, and I understand, I mean, I've been in the vaults looking at land records, different things. I know there's a lot of things that the town clerk has that she's responsible for. I don't know what the town treasurer has. So my question, but if it's only money, my question is, why can't we have a safe put in that would only be accessible by the town treasurer? Because she's responsible for that. If there's money that goes missing, who is that coming down on? That's coming down on the town treasurer. If there are things that happen with our records that are oh so important, who does that come down on? That comes down on Danielle. So I don't think sharing a code is a good idea at all. I think the only person who should have the code is the person who is in charge of and responsible for what is in the vaults. So if the money is the only thing, maybe instead of doing a new policy with who has access to the vaults, maybe the vaults should only be town clerk accessible. Bottom line, if she's only here 30 hours a week, then that's the only time any of you, any of us are accessible to go to that. We know that what her hours are and when we can have access, no more than the holiday weekend. Oh, we're closed for Monday too, but it's no different. But can we just look at purchasing a safe and allow the town clerk to have access to the vaults and only the town clerk, and have a separate safe for the treasurer that only the treasurer has access to?
Thanks, Tammy. I see Hannah's hand.
So I'm speaking today as the assistant town clerk, so I just want to go over a few things. I'd like to echo what Tammy said and, just remind everybody listening in the public that, the town clerk is statutorily responsible for, all of the town's vital records. She is an elected official for the town of Guilford and essentially has personal liability for protecting those documents. So I'm sure, everybody sitting here out in TV land can understand why, there's a real sensitivity around, relinquishing that combination to, those records not being in her direct care. So that's, a significant concern for Danielle in the town clerk's office. I also wanted to make note, we took an inventory of all of the quote town clerk items that are in the treasurer's vault. I'll just go through that. There's town reports, grand lists, maps, election bags of ballots that must be retained for statutorily designated amounts of time, voter registrations, purged voters, oaths, petitions, septic and wastewater permits, school registers, military rosters, censuses, office supplies, land records that don't fit in the clerk's vaults, and the tabulator. I took some measurements this morning and currently there's only 44 square feet of space that's not occupied by shelves in the town clerk's vault. So because that is a public access space, all of the ballots and voting stuff and election stuff literally cannot go into the town clerk's office because it is open to the public during the day that Danielle is here. There's also physically not the space to contain the town clerk overflow into the, from the treasurer's vault into the town clerk's vault. So, from a logistical standpoint, there's some problems. And we talk about having a policy about access after hours. I understand why that's concerning. I mean, but at the end of the day, what ends up happening is there are federal and state deadlines for when ballots are received on times that the office is not open here. So when Danielle has to come here at 5 o'clock on a Friday to check the mail and get overseas ballots, but there's nobody here and she can't access her election supplies that are in the treasurer's office, there's no nefarious malintent to access a different vault. It's literally that she is here by a federal statute to do election stuff. Elections get done late. So if there are policies and procedures that are developed around this combination sharing, that's something that's really going to have to be taken into account is, deadlines that are all over the map for the town clerk's office. And I might suggest that if this is passed, that there's a combination sharing motion passed without a policy in place that has been reviewed publicly, that the select board also consider putting something, that the VLCT attorneys or a town attorney, absolves the town clerk from, basically a responsibility for those documents that she is, if there's other people who have combination access when she's not here and keeping an eye on the vault, then maybe she should be absolved from that statutory responsibility.
Ellie?
Wait,
No,
Ellie.
sorry, Ellie's next, thank you. Ellie?
I could say so much, but I'm not going to say many things.
Why not?
I think this issue comes down to trust. And there has been a growing sense of distrust in this office. I will say I did not deny Danielle access to a vault, to the treasurer's vault. This came about last week when I was trying to get ready for fiscal year end. And she had at first talked to me in passing and then sent me an email on Monday, actually the week before, on Friday, saying that we need to deal with this issue, so fine, and she said to put it in writing. I, on Monday and Tuesday, was here and doing overtime, trying to get stuff done because I had Nemrick coming on Friday to close the books with me. And Wednesday, the final hour, right before she left, I went in and looked and said, look, I'm here, let's talk about this. What do you need? I will admit that I said, my first inclination is to give you the combination. But then I said, but you know what? I don't have access to your vault. And it seems like from day one, when we got these combinations, I can't have access. I'm here 40 hours. Starting in June, she was here 30 hours. If I need to work on delinquent tax sales, which I will be doing because now I have someone to work with me, I need that access. Because I need to go back into land records, look up old mortgages, old liens. I have to get the legal descriptions of properties and get all that paperwork together in order to give to a lawyer to say, okay, we need to move forward on this property. But we couldn't come to a conclusion that day. And I said, do you not trust me? Do you have no confidence in me? And I didn't get an answer. Why do we have to do this through email? And Danielle started explaining this and that and deadlines, but I said, why can't we just talk about it? And we couldn't come to a conclusion.
And then that's when I received the email.
We
I'm gonna
have
go
to in excess.
I'm just saying, I think we're getting into what should be an executive session. I'm sorry, but.
I'm sorry.
But I mean, I'm not blaming you. I
I
mean, I
just
understand
have-
where you're coming from, but.
It's making it more difficult every day for me to come to work.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's fair. I am perfectly willing to make out policy, to hand over the combination, but I would like a little respect for the job that I'm doing. You know, she gets respect from me every goddamn day. I'm sorry. I come into this office, I try to keep things friendly. I work at communicating with her. I'm sorry, I'm to my breaking point here. You know?
I'm gonna talk to Marty, ask Marty to speak, and I won't ask for folks that have responded again just yet. Lynn, just please, excuse me, I'm referring to Marty. Thank you.
So I first want to acknowledge the jobs that Erica and Ellie try to execute in a very tense and, as we were talking, uncomfortable work environment. So I appreciate that. I think all of us have probably experienced that at some point in our lives. What I'm hearing from what Hannah said and what Ellie said, perhaps a simple solution in the same way that controlling the vaults and distributing the codes to the people who need them. Let's align the clerk and the treasurer's hours.
Yes.
So that those are consistent. So I know the clerk's job had been the 40 hours with 30 hours of clerking, and that's what it went down to, because I think the clerk forewent the assistant treasurer 10 hours. So there have to be 30 hours a week distributed across days, because it can't be, you know, the clerk has to come in and check at 5 o'clock on Friday. If you have to check the mail on Fridays, Friday has to be one of your days to be here. But make those hours coincide so that you don't have this 4-day gap.
All right, folks, I think that we'll.
I got a quick one here.
Oh, no.
Please,
sorry, it won't recognize it.
Please excuse my crudeness, but as a supervisor of 40 men on the paper mill, it's the same thing that's in here. I don't like this one's stabbing a knife, and this one's stabbing a knife. I had a meeting one day, and I said, look, I don't care if somebody's sleeping with your wife, when you can through that door, your job is to work. Why can't we do that here, work together, rather than plan on sticking a knife in one another?
That's, yeah, that's, I will talk, I think the person on the phone is Richard Wazenski. So Richard? Richard.
You hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning. I think the point that I wanted to make has been sort of danced around, but it seems to me that in addition to policies about the combinations of the vaults, there should also be a deep look at what's going on in the office, because this seems to be a situation that's poisonous. And from what we've just heard, it's toxic, and that's what needs to be solved more than combinations and who gets to go into the vault or not. There needs to be, I don't know, do you need to bring in a human resources person to straighten it out? But obviously there's not harmony in that office, and that does not serve the residents, and myself included, well, to have disharmony in the town office. So I would suggest that the select board immediately come to some way of solving these personnel problems, because that's what they are. The problems are way beyond vaults and combinations.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I see Matt Dove or Tasha Tillman.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Richard. I actually want to build right off of what you said. While vaults and safes and combos and access are all really important issues to attend to, which I appreciate. I want to say I appreciate the select board doing this in the light of day and giving the public opportunity to exchange and dialogue about. The root of the issue is personnel, and somebody else mentioned that we've likely all been in workspaces or collaborative spaces where things have been tense and challenging. Never have I ever been in a work or collaborative space where it has been a requirement to not speak to another person. So that's indicative that I just don't understand how you all can work in that type of, that's not a working environment. And I don't know what needs to be done to rectify that. Richard suggested an HR professional, but I mean, like, part of the duties of the job is communication with the public and with one another, and speaking is a form of communication. So I don't know who needs to get over what, but y'all have to talk to each other to be able to serve us. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people that the personnel who are accountable to the select board are the town treasurer and the town administrator. The town clerk is completely independent of the select board. The town clerk is accountable only to the electorate, not the select board. So I appreciate the ideas of, personnel coming, personnel mediation, but that is something that the select board could politely request, but not require.
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
We're
can
aware
I
of
just
that.
make one more
Yeah.
comment?
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to say that nobody, it seems like some people are feeling as if the select board is trying to make some kind of power grab here. The select board has no desire, nobody on this board wants to have combinations, access to combinations on the town vaults. When we come here, if we need something in the town vault, we go through the same process that anybody else does. We're here because we would like to have peace in the town office. And as Sheila said, we have no tools to help that happen. We want to support the smooth workings of our town as best we can.
Thank you. All right. I'm sorry.
I'd like to, anyone that wants to speak that hasn't spoke,
Yeah.
I'd like them to be able to
All
speak.
right. So, I know you really would like to. Thank you, Steve.
Steve, a couple of things here. This meeting sort of reflects many meetings from this year. And I'm going to say again, as a resident, it's up to the select board and the responsibility of the select board to run the business of this town, not to get into the emotional aspects of things.
Correct.
And I think the vault policy is a good idea. I think the sharing of the codes in a proper way is a good idea, and that's running the business of the town. The personnel issues are far deeper and more personal. That's why the personnel issues. So I think we have to go back to what is the purpose of this meeting today. As I understand it from the agenda, it was to develop a policy about the vaults within the building. And I think the state, since so much has been done this year, every meeting is based on statute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, D. And, you know, Chip started out by reading the statute that has a very good suggestion for how to handle this. So I think we should get back to that. I think that vote should be taken. I think it should be just as it was said. I think I would support that 100%. And I just want to say, as far as somebody invoking my name and my responsibility for the way, how many hours the town clerk works, unless they have never heard of town meeting, I believe there was a vote that day by everybody in the room. Now, if somebody has an objection to my statements, I don't have a problem with that. I encourage anybody who wants to know what happened that day to go back and watch that town meeting. I stand 100% behind then and now, behind the comments I made. And that's why the town voted for the way it is now. Now that the town has spoken, and because it's been pointed out that the clerk is only beholden to the town and not the select board, I as a citizen say that we have spoken and that's it. And if you want to change it, see you in March.
Yes.
It's not a time to start, the select board, nobody has the right to go back and change what was voted on that day. So I think we should go back to voting on this policy, get a policy for the vault, share the combinations as needed, and treat it like a business, not like a daycare center.
John, may I please? I feel there's something really important that needs to be
Yes,
said.
I'm sure you do. Lynn, please, yes. Quickly.
I appreciate
Can you
it.
be very quick?
Yes.
Thank you.
On exactly what Steve Lemke said, and I don't care whoever the vault whoever our town clerk is, so I know there's a connection to me, but this needs to be said. I asked at town meeting, Steve Lemke shared what he thought to be true. No one knows except for your staff members if there was discussion between our town clerk, Erica, and Ellie about both of them having their own assistants. Our town clerk was shamed, and no one can deny that. I replayed.
Sorry.
Okay,
Thanks very much.
topic.
This is not
Topic.
germane. It's not germane to the topic. Lynn, it's not germane to the topic. I'm sorry, Lynn.
You want to bring in a human resources person.
Lynn, I didn't bring that up.
Stop.
Thank you very kindly. Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
seriously.
We can take this up at another time, and you should take it up with as many community members as you'd like. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, so is there anything else we need to say here at the board level?
Yeah, I have a few points that I want to say out loud because I want to talk about it at some point. So the vault for the clerk's vault holds public records. It's open to the public during the day. I think that trying to facilitate aligning hours is a really good idea. I think that we maybe want to look into a private safe for any election items and ballots.
There are also, just to say it, there are also temporary measures that can be taken.
Yeah, I think that
are
we
safe enough.
need to look into that. And then potential mediation within the office, which is, it is a personnel issue, but I don't want our town treasurer to quit. So I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, we don't want anybody to quit. Yes, exactly.
Nope.
So, all right, thank you, Tara. We'll keep those notes and we'll carry them forward. All right, anything else anybody here on the board wants to say? So the motion is that the select board per 24 V.S.A. section 872 in its statutory right will take oversight view of getting the codes for the vaults and then we will manage that as we need to manage it. And that's the motion. And it was seconded by Michael. All right, we'll take a vote then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? All right, thank you very much. I will just say just so we know that there are there are a couple of opportunities here for us to begin working more closely together here. If we're not able to get the combinations, if the select board is not able to receive the combinations for the vaults for whatever reason, we can't, the select board is at right, just so we all know, is at right to pursue a court order to receive the combination. So we have that right. It seems silly that we'd want to do that, but that's a right of ours. Another option is that the select board could pay to have could use town dollars to pay to have the combinations reworked, and then the select board would have that information, and then it would be shared with the right people who have no interest, as we'll develop the policy, but there will be no interest in sharing the combinations widely, I'm sure. So, okay, folks, let's see, we have a public comment period if people want to, yeah, sorry, yeah. Ellie.
I would just like to publicly apologize for my outburst, and that was uncalled for.
You feel better afterwards?
No.
Oh, so you're supposed to.
Dolores.
I guess my comment is that it wasn't addressed, the responsibility aspect that the town clerk has. So when she's not here and there's access to the vault with this vault, the combination sharing thing, how is the responsibility if something happens in the town clerk vault?
Well, yeah.
How that hasn't been addressed.
Well, I think that'll be part of the policy that we'll develop for sure.
Yeah, but in the meantime, it's like.
Yeah. Well, it's just exactly like we have right now. In the meantime, which is how we have it right now. We don't have a policy that guides everything. People are acting on their own free will at this point, and
Well,
that's the way we're working it right now.
Well, as
And
I
we're-
understand it, there is no access when she's not here to the vault, to her vault. Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct. Yeah.
So that isn't how it is now. But if.
It is how it is. You just described
That's
it.
how that is.
Right.
So she's responsible for it, and when she's not here, no one's allowed in there.
The
So
policy
she's
will
still
take
responsible.
policy will take
But
that
as
into
you're
consideration.
changing now, you're saying, okay, we're gonna allow access when she's not here. But in that part, is there gonna be, as soon as somebody else is allowed access to that vault?
Hear you.
Is that gonna be, is she gonna be like, is part of that motion made so that I would think that would have to be included in the fact that she's not responsible for it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And Hannah brought that point up, and I think we can consider all that, but I don't think that's going to stop the board from moving forward to try to solve the problem.
But there's an interim there where
Yeah.
she is responsible.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right.
Well, just as we're learning about what trust means all across the board, we're asking for the community to trust us to figure this out. We'll do the best we can. Of course we will. Just as we trust, we're trying to trust everybody to do the best they can. Meanwhile, access is being denied various staff members for being able to get access to records, and that's not tenable for us. So there are a lot of things we're considering here.
It's just in that 10 hours a week though.
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. No. No.
So the staff, while the town clerk is here, is being denied access to the town clerk staff? I mean, the town clerk vault?
No, there are 2 other days when the clerk is not here, that the staff cannot access records that they need to do their work.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of, that's at play in this. It's not making us make this decision. It's just at play here. All right. All right, Tammy?
If you're going to be writing a policy, not recreating one, but starting from scratch, I still think it's important to emphasize that with the town clerk is the only person who's being held responsible for all of these documents, no one but the town clerk should have the combination. I think the town should have a safe, purchase a safe, that the treasurer is the only person who has the combination. And that's the way the policy should read. Whoever the town treasurer is the person who has the combination, because they're the ones solely responsible for the contents. Whoever the town clerk is at the time is the only person who should have the combination to the vault. If the town clerk is here for 30 hours a week, then the vaults are accessible 30 hours a week. That's the way it is. I don't really think that this has to be about who's getting along with who and who's not being invited to lunch. This is strictly about who should be.
It's not strictly Tammy, I'm sorry.
I know, but
Yeah.
it just seems like it's getting way off kilter as far as who's getting along with who. When if I'm the one solely responsible for the contents of a vault, I don't want Tom, Dick, and Harry to have the combination.
The reason we're here
That's
the reason that we're here, Tammy, just to
Is
say
to
it.
write a policy,
No, the
correct?
reason that we're here has nothing to do with the clerk's vault. Has nothing to do with the clerk's vault. The reason we're here this morning is because the town clerk has requested the combination and unfettered access to the other vault. That's the reason we're here today. So it's not about protecting the clerk's vault.
Okay.
It's not about protecting the clerk's
Okay, I
vault.
want to back up though. From what I understood when Hannah was reading the list, the two vaults both contain town clerk items.
That's correct. Just as
she's-
both vaults contain materials that all of our staff need access to.
Right, but all of the staff will have access to it 30 hours a week when the town.
That's not why
clerk-
we're here right now. But
No,
yes.
no, I understand that. But what I'm saying is, if the town clerk needs more vault space than the one vault can provide, and the treasurer only needs enough vault space for the money.
That's your assumption.
No, that's what I asked you, what the treasurer had, the vault.
I don't know.
You
We're
said
not,
money.
let's not go there, Tammy. It's just not worth all this. It's just not worth this. We're trying to solve a situation that has to do with access to vaults. That's all we're trying to do. And we're doing our statutory responsibility. Our statutory responsibility is to oversee this if the staff cannot manage it. The staff, as we understand it, is not capable of managing this. So the select board is stepping in. Yeah, Dave.
Just a question for clarity in my own mind. But we've talked about mostly the clerk's responsibility to the records, but are not those records the property of the town?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The clerk does have legal responsibility for those, just
I
as the
understand that.
treasurer
I
has
just want to
legal
make sure
responsibility.
that we're all clear that those are all of those records are the property of the town,
Correct.
irrespective of who's responsible for what records.
Correct. Yeah. All right, folks. Ellie?
I just would like to clarify what's in the treasurer's vault.
Mhm.
Everything that Hannah said was correct. But there's also financial records, bank statements, checks, cash, and a number of other things and personnel.
Personnel files.
Files. All our state, federal, and tax information. Things about the Department of Labor and all of our insurances.
It's not gonna fit in the state.
So, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm responsible for those.
Right.
And I need that to be recognized as well. I have the same, I was gonna say the same level of responsibility that Danielle has. When I think of elections, she might have some more, but I'm responsible for all those things in that vault and for keeping the finances of the town in order. You know, I would hate for somebody to go in there and steal 6 months worth of, bank statements. One, they have our bank information. Two, I'm gonna get screwed by an auditor. Oh, I could probably go back to the bank and get it all again. But, there's a lot of financial reporting that occurs. It's what our business is based on. So I don't want you to think it's just money. And actually, the only cash that's in there on a regular basis is $64.09. That's our cash box, okay? And money that comes in, I do deposits. I try to do them every other day during tax season. It's multiple times a day. Okay, so money doesn't sit in there for too long. It goes quicker to the bank if it's all cash, for sure. Because I don't like to leave cash in the vault, except for that $64.09. So I just wanted to clarify what's in that vault.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so is it?
One last thing, so with what Ellie just said, anybody that enters either vault should have to sign some type of personnel policy. And because Danielle is not an employee, she's an elected official, she should still have to sign something stating her responsibilities when entering the treasurer's vault. So that is another thing that we need to make sure is on our policy.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I think we can, Connie, one word.
I just wanted to bring up something that's been talked about, not just recently, but a little bit earlier in the discussion. And that was the request that communications be made by email rather than talking to one another. And although that would be a very difficult situation to work under, I can also understand it because it's very easy for someone to say, oh, I never said that. But if it comes through in an email, it's written. And so, you have the written communication. So yes, it may be difficult, but if things are at such a point where there is no trust with one another, then having a record of it on paper
Maybe
or
the other way.
electronically
Yeah.
is a good idea.
Yeah, okay. All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion.
I got 3 of them. All right, anybody second that? Thank you, Miranda. All right, there's a motion to adjourn and been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Thank you very kindly, folks.
Thank
Good
you.
hearty discussion.